A hush falls over the brightly lit laboratory as the camera slowly zooms in, not on the serene face of the woman in the portrait, but on a faint, almost imperceptible irregularity just behind her left shoulder. It's a subtle ripple, a textural anomaly beneath the aged varnish, a whisper of something more profound lurking beneath the surface of what appears to be a typical late 19th century oil painting. The light catches it just so, revealing a hint of an unnatural protrusion, an unsettling detail that immediately begs the question: what forgotten secret is truly embedded within this seemingly innocuous artwork? This isn't just an art restoration, it's an archaeological dig into the heart of a hidden, potentially disturbing historical revelation. Meet Dr. Evelyn Reed, her neatly tied auburn hair framing intently focused eyes, perpetually peering through the magnification lenses that have become an extension of her own vision. She is a maestro of the unseen, a historian of molecules and pigments, leading a dedicated team within the hallowed, climate-controlled halls of the prestigious Thorne Institute for Art Preservation. Her workspace, a kaleidoscope of specialized tools, brushes finer than human hair, and an array of chemicals, speaks volumes of her meticulous craft. Evelyn isn't merely restoring paintings, she's resurrecting narratives, breathing life back into forgotten canvases, and more often than not, unearthing histories that the art world never knew existed. Her passion isn't just for the art itself, but for the untold stories locked within its very fibers. The current challenge before them is an anonymous donation, an 1893 portrait, surprisingly large, depicting a young woman with an ethereal, almost melancholic gaze. It arrived at the Institute a few weeks prior, swathed in protective sheeting, its provenance as mysterious as the smudges of time marring its once vibrant surface. The accompanying paperwork was sparse, merely stating it was a family heirloom, deeply loved but long neglected, and gifted by an anonymous benefactor who wished for its true essence to be revealed. Evelyn and her team, accustomed to such enigmatic arrivals, had approached it with their usual blend of scientific rigor and artistic intuition. Initial assessments had suggested a relatively straightforward, albeit extensive, restoration. Layers of grime from a century of exposure, oxidized varnish, and minor structural damage to the canvas itself were all cataloged. The wood stretcher was warped, and some of the paint had begun to craze, forming a delicate network of hairline cracks across the subject's face. The canvas itself seemed stable enough, a robust linen weave typical of the period. There were no obvious signs of previous amateurish repairs, which often complicate their work immensely. The consensus among Evelyn's team, a collection of equally passionate conservators specializing in chemistry, art history, and structural repair, was that this would be a challenging but ultimately rewarding journey back to its original glory. The goal, as always, was to stabilize the painting, meticulously clean it, and then carefully re-varnish it to protect it for another century or more. They anticipated nothing more than cosmetic improvements, revealing the artist's original palette and skill, perhaps uncovering a signature previously obscured by dirt. The cleaning process began, a ballet of precision and patience. Using specialized solvents meticulously tested on tiny, inconspicuous areas, the team started to lift decades of accumulated surface dirt. Each cotton swab, handled with surgical precision, came away stained with a yellowish-brown residue, a testament to the painting's long exposure to the elements and the passage of time. The colors beneath, slowly emerging, were richer, deeper, more alive than anyone had initially imagined. The woman's skin tone, once sallow, now glowed with a delicate porcelain quality. Her eyes, previously dull, now held a glint of reflective life. It was a painstaking, almost meditative process, each brushstroke of solvent and gentle wipe revealing another fraction of the artist's original intent. The atmosphere in the lab, usually one of quiet concentration, carried a buzz of anticipation. Every successful removal of a particularly stubborn patch of grime was met with small, appreciative murmurs. This was the routine, the expected joy of their profession, peeling back the layers of history to reveal the beauty beneath. They were cleaning, not discovering, or so they believed. The team worked in shifts, their gloved hands moving with practiced efficiency, each aware of the immense responsibility they carried. The air was thick with the faint scent of cleaning agents, mingling with the aged aroma of oil paint and canvas. Evelyn, ever the meticulous leader, oversaw each stage, frequently checking progress under various lights, from raking illumination to ultraviolet, searching for any anomalies, any hint of previous intervention or an unexpected challenge. It was during one such inspection, as the uppermost layers of surface dirt began to recede from the area directly behind the subject's head, that her practiced eye paused. The texture, even through the remaining varnish, felt different. Not like canvas, not like paint, not like a patch. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible difference, a faint whisper against the smooth surface, but to Evelyn it screamed. A small, almost imperceptible shiver ran down her spine. The portrait, it seemed, had more to offer than just a pretty face. But before we dive deeper into this incredible discovery, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next historical reveal. As Evelyn and her team meticulously cleaned layers of grime and old varnish after the initial assessment, the routine restoration began to transform into something far less predictable. The gentle strokes of their specialized brushes, sometimes no wider than a single hair, peeled back decades of neglect, revealing the true colors beneath. It was during this painstaking process, specifically around the subject's head, that an anomaly first piqued Evelyn's seasoned eye. A faint discoloration, almost imperceptible at first, started to emerge on the canvas directly behind the young woman's serene profile. It wasn't merely a stain. Its texture felt subtly different, subtly raised, under the delicate pressure of her gloved fingertips. This wasn't consistent with the smooth, painted background typical of a portrait from that era. The light, usually reliable in revealing flaws and artistic nuances, seemed to catch this particular spot in an odd way, creating a shallow, almost ghostly relief. Evelyn paused. Her breath held, signaling to Liam, her lead conservation assistant, with a raised hand. He leaned in, his brow furrowed in concentration. "See that, Liam? Just to the left of her ear where the dark background meets the outline of her hair?" Liam adjusted his loupe, his gaze sharpening. Yes. It's not paint, is it? Or at least not paint applied in the usual way." He gently prodded the area with a tiny, soft-tipped probe. "Feels almost granular beneath the varnish, like something embedded." The initial excitement of a straightforward restoration project quickly gave way to a deeper, more unsettling curiosity. They had encountered hidden signatures, overpainted elements, and even occasionally fragments of other paintings beneath the surface, but this felt distinctively different. The team immediately shifted gears. No longer was it just about cleaning. It was about understanding what lay beneath. They decided to employ non-invasive testing protocols. X-rays were the first line of defense, harmlessly penetrating the paint layers to reveal underlying structures. The images, however, proved ambiguous. The X-ray showed a denser, more organic structure than expected, radiating a faint, mottled pattern. It wasn't metal, nor was it the typical lead white or earth pigments found in paint. It suggested something biological, something once living, but offered no concrete identification. Next, they moved to ultraviolet light examination. Under the eerie glow of the UV lamp, the hidden element fluoresced with a dull, yellowish-green luminescence, distinct from the surrounding paint layers, which typically glowed in shades of blue or purple depending on the pigments and varnishes used. This further confirmed their suspicions. They were dealing with an organic, non-paint substance, deliberately placed or embedded within the canvas or layers directly beneath the final imagery. The antagonist in this unfolding drama was the hidden history itself, the unknown material and its unsettling nature. It presented an immediate dilemma, a classic challenge in the world of conservation. How aggressively could they proceed without risking irrevocable damage to a potentially valuable secret? Or should they be overly cautious, perhaps leaving a significant piece of the portrait's true narrative undiscovered, forever hidden beneath the veil of time and paint? Evelyn felt the weight of that decision. Every choice carried consequences, every action irreversible. "We need to know what this is," Evelyn stated, her voice quiet but firm, addressing Liam and Dr. Anya Sharma, the team's material scientist. "The X-rays and UV are telling us it's organic, but that's a vast category. It could be anything from a fragment of wood to a piece of rudimentary fabric or something far more unusual." Anya nodded, adjusting her glasses. "The key is characterization. Without knowing its composition, we risk damage with any further physical intervention. But leaving it unknown is unsatisfying, to say the least." The team spent a day in intense discussion, reviewing all available data, scrutinizing the ambiguous X-ray images, and re-examining the UV fluorescence patterns. The object didn't appear to be structurally integral to the canvas's integrity, but its presence was clearly intentional, given its placement directly behind the subject's head, almost like a subtle halo or a hidden thought. After careful consideration of the risks versus the potential rewards of discovery, Evelyn authorized a more advanced, and admittedly more invasive, microsampling technique. This was a decision not made lightly, as even the smallest sample removal was a permanent alteration to the artwork. It required extraordinary precision and expertise. Under high magnification, using a sterile, ultra-fine scalpel, Evelyn, with Anya guiding her hand, carefully extracted a minuscule fragment from the very edge of the suspicious area. It was no larger than a grain of sand, barely visible to the naked eye. The process was agonizingly slow, each breath held, each movement deliberate. The tiny sliver was then meticulously placed into a specialized vial, sealed, and prepared for transport. This precious sample was then dispatched to a specialized archaeological and forensic lab known for its expertise in identifying organic materials, often from ancient or degraded contexts. They needed answers, and they needed them with absolute certainty. The anticipation was palpable. The restoration of the 1893 portrait, initially perceived as a straightforward technical challenge, had morphed into a forensic investigation, hinting at a secret far deeper and more profound than any of them could have imagined. The hum of the lab equipment, once a comforting backdrop, now seemed to carry an almost expectant silence, a quiet tension, as they awaited the results that would undoubtedly reshape their understanding of the portrait and its mysterious past. The archaeological lab results arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered via an encrypted email that Evelyn had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. She gathered her core team in the sterile conference room, the hum of the air purification system a stark counterpoint to the nervous energy in the air. As she clicked open the attachment, a collective breath was held. The report's conclusion was stark, unequivocal, and sent an immediate, profound chill through the room. Analysis confirms samples are osseous material, specifically animal bone, exhibiting clear evidence of deliberate carving and modification. Microscopic examination indicates integration within the canvas structure, predating subsequent paint application. Animal bone. The words hung in the air, heavy and disturbing, not just some inert material, not a foreign inclusion by accident, but something intentionally fashioned from the remains of a creature and embedded directly into the painting. This wasn't merely an unusual texture they had discovered. It was a macabre, deliberate secret woven into the very fabric of the portrait. Dr. Ramirez, the team's material scientist, broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. Embedded. Carved. It's not just a foreign body. It's an intended part of the artwork, albeit hidden. Evelyn felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. The serene woman in the portrait seemed to gaze back at them with an unsettling knowingness, her placid expression now imbued with a faint, unsettling aura. Their immediate task shifted from pure physical restoration to a deep dive into historical context. What kind of artistic practice, what cultural belief would lead to the inclusion of carved bone behind a painted figure in 1893? Their research into the portrait's likely era and artistic style revealed a fascinating, if sometimes disturbing, subcurrent in art history. While not commonplace, such macabre inclusions, particularly those of organic origin, were not entirely unheard of during certain periods, often imbued with profound symbolic or spiritual significance. The late 19th century, straddling the scientific advancements of the Victorian era and a lingering romanticism with the ethereal and the morbid, presented a complex landscape for such practices. They scoured art historical texts, anthropological studies, and cultural archives. They found references to memento mori, objects intended to serve as a reminder of the inevitability of death, which sometimes incorporated human or animal remains. They unearthed accounts of folk art where personal relics were incorporated into beloved objects. There were whispers of ritualistic offerings, particularly in more rural or isolated communities, where the line between superstition and heartfelt belief blurred. Could this be a deeply personal, perhaps even clandestine act by the artist or the patron, a secret message, or an unseen protective charm? The revelation added a thick layer of eerie intrigue to the serene subject, transforming her gentle gaze into something far more enigmatic. Initial theories and speculations began to emerge, each more compelling and unsettling than the last. Was it a memento mori, a stark remembrance of mortality placed strategically behind the timeless beauty of the sitter? Perhaps a hidden tribute to a lost loved one, the bone a symbolic remnant of a cherished pet, or even horrifyingly a human relative. The thought sent shivers through the team. Could it be a ritualistic offering, a protective amulet hidden within the artwork to ward off illness or misfortune, or to ensure the subject's soul found peace? This idea, though speculative, resonated with a deep-seated human need for control and meaning in the face of the unknown. Evelyn considered the possibility that it was a personal, dark secret of the artist or the sitter, something intended never to be seen, yet irrevocably part of the creation. The subtle way it had been obscured suggested deliberate concealment, not accidental oversight. They began to research the historical use of bone carvings in art from that period, broadening their search beyond conventional Western art to include folk practices and indigenous influences that might have intersected with the sensibilities of the time. They looked for similar cases, any documented instance where such a raw, organic element had been incorporated into a formal portrait. The initial findings were sparse, but enough to confirm that the concept, while shocking, was not entirely without precedent in the broader tapestry of human artistic and spiritual expression. Each new piece of information, each historical anecdote, only deepened the mystery, pushing them further into the speculative realm of human belief and the hidden meanings behind seemingly ordinary objects. The portrait had become a portal to a past both elegant and unsettling, its secrets now yearning to be fully understood. Evelyn's team, now acutely aware of the bone carving's unsettling presence and potential significance, proceeded with an almost reverential caution. The initial discovery had been a shock, transforming their routine restoration into an archaeological dig on canvas. Every movement was slow, deliberate, guided by magnified lenses and the steadiest of hands. They employed microscopic tools, delicate scalpels tipped with sapphire, and fine-tipped brushes to painstakingly remove the final, thin layers of paint and grime that still clung to the hidden surface. It was a painstaking process stretching over several days, each hour unfolding with the tension of a ticking clock. The air in the lab was thick with anticipation, interrupted only by the hushed whispers of instruction and the soft scrape of a tool against dried pigment. As the obscuring layers receded, the true form of the bone began to emerge from its centuries-long concealment. It wasn't merely a fragment, as they first suspected, but a deliberately carved piece. Its overall shape resolved into a distinct cross, not perfectly symmetrical or finely finished, but unequivocally a cross. The edges were slightly uneven, the surface rougher than the modern industrial carvings, suggesting it had been shaped by hand, perhaps with rudimentary tools. This crudeness, however, lent it an undeniable authenticity, a visceral connection to the hands that had brought it into being. Even more striking were the faint, almost imperceptible symbols etched into its surface. They were tiny, barely visible even under high magnification, worn by time and the faint abrasion of the overlying paint. Some appeared geometric, others more organic, resembling stylized natural forms or perhaps rudimentary script. They weren't immediately recognizable as any common religious iconography or widely known cultural symbols Evelyn or her team were familiar with. This obscurity only deepened the mystery. The craftsmanship, though crude, was undeniably deliberate. This wasn't an accidental inclusion or a natural imperfection in the bone. It was a chosen, shaped, and inscribed object, embedded with clear intent. Its very presence screamed of a personal narrative, a silent testament to a deep-seated emotion or belief, far removed from the professional polish of the portrait itself. The emotional impact on the team was profound and immediate. The portrait, which had started as a challenging but ultimately routine restoration project, had undergone a complete metamorphosis. It was no longer just an aged oil painting requiring technical expertise. It had transformed into a profound, almost spiritual mystery, a direct conduit to an unknown past and potentially a deeply tragic or desperate story. The serene expression of the woman in the portrait, which had initially conveyed a simple elegance, now took on a new, unsettling depth. Her eyes seemed to hold a secret, her gentle smile a silent knowing, as if she were a silent guardian of the bone cross nestled behind her painted form. The team found themselves not just examining an artifact, but contemplating a human life, a poignant echo from the late 19th century reaching across time. Evelyn, usually stoic and focused, found herself lingering before the portrait for extended periods, lost in thought. The sight of the rough-hewn cross with its cryptic etchings evoked a powerful sense of empathy. Who was this woman? What was her connection to this hidden object? Was it a talisman of hope, a symbol of grief, or a desperate plea against an unseen adversary? The atmosphere in the lab shifted from one of academic curiosity to a more profound, almost spiritual engagement. Every member of the team felt the weight of the discovery, understanding that they were not merely restoring an object but uncovering a fragment of a forgotten soul. The bone cross was a raw, visceral presence, a stark reminder of mortality and the human desire to leave an indelible mark, to imbue objects with meaning beyond their material form. It was a silent whisper from the grave, a tangible link to a story that had been buried for over a century, patiently awaiting its rediscovery. The serenity of the painted face now felt like a delicate veil, barely concealing the intense emotional drama that had played out somewhere in the past, forever enshrined within the canvas. The team felt an overwhelming responsibility, not just to the artwork, but to the story it embodied, to the unknown individuals whose lives were intertwined with this extraordinary, haunting secret. Evelyn, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a profound respect for the portrait's burgeoning narrative, broadened her investigative scope. The team, now fully accustomed to the unsettling nature of their discovery, understood that a purely art historical approach would no longer suffice. They needed to cross-reference disciplines, to peel back the layers of societal norms and overlooked cultural practices from the late 19th century. Collaborating with leading historical and anthropological experts became paramount. Dr. Eris Thorne, a specialist in Victorian-era folklore and funerary customs from the British Museum, was consulted first. His initial reaction to Evelyn's meticulously prepared dossier, complete with high-resolution images of the bone cross and its faint etchings, was a blend of academic fascination and genuine awe. He immediately recognized the unusual nature of the find, but also its potential significance. Dr. Thorne explained that while overt magical practices were largely driven underground by the rise of scientific rationalism, beliefs in protective charms, sympathetic magic, and memento mori remained surprisingly prevalent, especially outside major urban centers or within specific cultural pockets. He pointed out that personal, hand-carved objects held immense power for individuals, imbued with intention and emotion far surpassing mass-produced talismans. He delved into the common practices of the time, discussing how objects linked to the deceased, or even fragments of cherished possessions, were often kept close as a way of maintaining connection, of warding off the finality of grief. Crucially, Dr. Thorne identified the etched symbols. They weren't universally recognized hieroglyphs or formal religious iconography, but rather a rare regional variant of a protective charm. Specifically, he linked them to a series of symbols documented in obscure ethnographical studies from certain rural communities in the British Isles and parts of Scandinavia, practices often associated with warding off illness, particularly consumption, a devastating and common cause of death in the 19th century, or guarding against what was termed premature death, sudden and unexpected loss. He also noted their use in preserving the memory of a lost loved one, particularly a child or a young woman, believed to ensure their spirit found peace and their memory endured. The crude, almost childlike nature of the carvings suggested a deeply personal rather than professional hand. This wasn't the work of a seasoned artisan, but perhaps someone expressing profound grief or desperate hope, someone trying to exert a small measure of control over the relentless power of mortality. This discovery provided a crucial sub-narrative. The bone cross wasn't just a generic memento mori, it was a specific, deliberate act of protection or remembrance, steeped in a particular tradition. It spoke of a profound and personal connection, hinting at a very somber and deeply emotional reason for its inclusion. This wasn't merely an artistic flourish, it was a desperate plea, a silent prayer embedded within the very fabric of the painting. The placid gaze of the woman in the portrait now carried an entirely new weight, imbued with the unspoken anxieties and sorrows of her time. With this new socio-cultural lens, the team redoubled its efforts to identify the portrait's subject. It had become clear that her story was not just linked to the bone cross, it was inextricably woven into its existence. Uncovering her identity was no longer a tangential research task, but the central pillar of their investigation. They began to scour archives with renewed vigor, focusing on the geographical regions where such protective charms were known to originate, broadening their search parameters to include not just prominent families or artists, but also the less documented lives of ordinary people. Evelyn and her researchers sifted through countless microfiche reels of census records, local parish registers, death certificates, and even old newspaper obituaries from the late 19th century. They looked for families who had experienced significant loss, particularly the death of a young woman around the time the portrait was likely painted. The anonymous donation meant they had no initial leads beyond the style of the painting and the materials used. It was like searching for a single grain of sand on an immense beach, but they were no longer just looking for a painting. They were looking for a life, for the emotional landscape that had led to the creation of such a poignant, hidden artifact. They cross-referenced names, dates, and locations, constructing speculative timelines of families who might have commissioned such a meaningful piece. The faint, nearly illegible initials discovered earlier on a small label adhered to the stretcher bars, which had initially been dismissed as insignificant, were now revisited with fresh eyes, becoming a potential key. They compared handwriting samples from wills and letters of the period, hoping for a match. The meticulous, often tedious work was punctuated by moments of intense excitement, false leads, and the occasional rediscovery of historical figures who, while not their subject, offered valuable context into the lives of people from that era. Each small step brought them closer, not just to a name, but to the very essence of the individual whose serene image held such a profound and unsettling secret. They felt a growing responsibility, a duty to give a voice to the voiceless story hidden within the canvas, to resolve the quiet, lingering lament suggested by the bone cross. The portrait was no longer an object of study. It had become a silent testament, waiting patiently for its truth to be told. After weeks of intense research, navigating forgotten parish registers and obscure local histories, a breakthrough finally occurred, illuminating a path through the dense fog of the past that had shrouded the portrait for so long. It wasn't a grand, dramatic revelation, but a quiet, almost unassuming detail that had eluded them for months. Evelyn herself, poring over digital scans of the original ornate frame, noticed a faint, almost entirely faded inscription on its reverse side, partially obscured by an old, brittle sticker from a long-defunct antique dealer. The letters were barely visible, worn smooth by time and handling, yet with careful digital enhancement, they managed to decipher a partial name, Eleanor Vieger, followed by what appeared to be a date fragment and a specific, though small town, Whitby, $189. This fragment, insignificant on its own, became the linchpin. Whitby, a quaint coastal town in North Yorkshire, known for its Gothic abbey and dramatic cliffs, provided the geographical anchor they desperately needed. With this new lead, the team meticulously cross-referenced census records, local obituaries, and church archives from the late 19th century. They discovered an Eleanor Vance, born in Whitby in 1872, who tragically passed away in 1893 at the tender age of 21. Her death record cited consumption, a common and devastating affliction of the era. The details aligned chillingly, painting a picture of a life cut short, leaving behind a family undoubtedly consumed by grief. The serene, almost melancholic expression on the woman in the portrait now resonated with a profound, heartbreaking poignancy. She wasn't merely a beautiful subject. She was Eleanor Vance, a young woman whose life ended far too soon. The next piece of the puzzle clicked into place when they investigated artists active in the Whitby area during that period. A local painter, Thomas Abernathy, was listed as having close ties to the Vance family. His personal journals, recently digitized by a regional historical society, contained several entries mentioning Eleanor. He described her as a kindred spirit, a muse, and spoke of the profound sorrow that enveloped the family after her passing. One entry, dated shortly after her funeral, expressed his desire to create a lasting tribute, a portrait that would capture her essence, a memory to defy the grave. This confirmed their suspicions. Abernathy was indeed the artist, and the portrait was painted as a memorial, a poignant act of remembrance commissioned by a grieving family or perhaps even conceived by Abernathy himself, driven by his personal affection for Eleanor. The bone cross, therefore, was not a random esoteric inclusion by an eccentric artist, but an intensely personal and deeply emotional element. The team theorized that it was an emotional inclusion by the Vance family, perhaps carved from a part of a beloved family pet, a dog or cat, a constant companion in Eleanor's short life, or a more disturbing but not entirely improbable thought, a fragment from a human relative, a symbolic connection to the lineage from which Eleanor came and to which she had returned. The concept of using human bone, while unsettling to modern sensibilities, was not entirely alien to 19th century folk practices, particularly in rural areas where ancestral connections and memento mori traditions held sway. However, given Abernathy's artistic sensibilities and the deliberate concealment, it was more likely a symbolic animal bone, carefully integrated by the artist as a deeply personal, hidden tribute, respecting the family's wishes while maintaining the outward decorum of a formal portrait. It was a secret shared, a silent understanding between the artist and his patrons, a private language of grief and remembrance. This revelation, however, brought with it a complex set of ethical considerations. The team found themselves wrestling with a profound dilemma: how to proceed with the bone cross. Their duty as conservators was to preserve the artwork in its entirety, to reveal its true nature. But what about the original intent? How would the original subjects, Eleanor's family, or the artist, Abernathy, have wanted it to be seen? It was clearly meant to be hidden, a private solace rather than a public spectacle. Exposing it fully felt like a violation of that intimate, unspoken agreement. Reconcealing it, however, felt like a betrayal of their professional obligation to historical truth, a denial of a crucial layer of the artwork's meaning. Evelyn convened a special meeting with her senior colleagues, art historians, and ethicists. The discussions were long and impassioned. Some argued for complete exposure, citing the educational value and the importance of presenting the artwork as it truly is, regardless of the original concealment. Others advocated for reconcealment, emphasizing respect for the artist's original intent and the intensely personal nature of the bone cross. They debated the fine line between preservation and interpretation, between historical accuracy and ethical sensitivity. Their duty was to preserve history, yes, but also to respect artistic intent and the profound emotional weight of the artifact. How could they honor Eleanor's memory, the family's grief, and Abernathy's poignant tribute while also fulfilling their responsibility to reveal the full story of this extraordinary piece? The portrait had ceased to be an object of mere aesthetic value. It had transformed into a tangible nexus of human emotion, history, and deeply personal secrets, demanding a carefully considered, sensitive approach. The weight of their decision hung heavy in the air, a silent testament to the profundity of the discovery and the ethical tightrope they walked. After days of intense deliberation, countless hours spent poring over historical precedents for similar artistic conundrums, and heartfelt discussions that went beyond mere academic debate, Evelyn and her team finally arrived at a consensus. Their course of action, they believed, struck the delicate balance between revealing the truth and respecting the sacred intimacy with which the bone cross was originally imbued. They would carefully preserve the bone cross exactly where it was, in situ, integrated into the canvas as Abernathy had so meticulously done. This ensured structural integrity and honored the original artistic and familial intent of placement. However, they would simultaneously implement a sophisticated reversible display method that allowed for its viewing without any permanent alteration to the painting itself. This innovative solution involved the meticulous design and fabrication of a subtly integrated transparent panel. Crafted from a high-grade, non-reactive optical polymer, this panel would be precisely fitted over the area of the bone cross, blending almost imperceptibly with the surrounding restored paintwork. The panel, designed to be completely removable and reattachable using micro hinges and magnetic clasps, would ordinarily remain closed, rendering the cross once again a hidden secret, just as its creators had intended for public viewing. Yet during special exhibitions, conservator demonstrations, or scholarly investigations, the panel could be carefully opened like a miniature, almost invisible door, revealing the intricately carved bone cross and its faint, protective symbols to those privileged enough to witness it. This would allow the bone cross to be studied, admired, and understood in its full context without ever permanently altering the delicate paint layers or compromising the artist's original act of concealment. It was a solution that acknowledged both the narrative power of the hidden and the educational imperative of the revealed. The team felt a collective sense of relief, a breakthrough achieved not just in conservation technique, but in ethical resolution. With the conservation strategy firmly in place and executed with Evelyn's characteristic precision, the time came for the restored portrait, now imbued with an unprecedented depth of meaning, to be unveiled. The art world, already buzzing with whispers of an extraordinary discovery, anticipated the event with bated breath. The initial press releases had been carefully worded, hinting at a profound hidden element without fully disclosing its nature. building an irresistible aura of mystery around the upcoming reveal. The unveiling ceremony itself was held in the grand hall of the museum, attended by art critics, historians, cultural dignitaries, and a captivated public. As the velvet drape slid away, revealing Eleanor's serene gaze, a collective gasp rippled through the audience. The portrait, cleaned of centuries of grime, shimmered with a newfound vibrancy, the colors rich and alive. But it was the subsequent, deliberate revelation of the bone cross that truly electrified the room. Evelyn, standing beside the portrait, calmly explained the painstaking restoration process, the scientific analyses, and the historical sleuthing that had led them to understand the portrait's secret. With a delicate gloved hand, she demonstrated the transparent panel, slowly opening it to expose the embedded bone cross. A collective hush fell over the audience, followed by murmurs of awe and disbelief. The story of its hidden bone cross and the poignant history it represented, a young life cut tragically short, a family's enduring grief, an artist's tender secret tribute, resonated deeply with everyone present. It transcended the boundaries of art appreciation, touching upon universal themes of love, loss, and remembrance. The sheer audacity of the hidden element, combined with the profound human story behind it, generated significant interest and powerful emotional responses, far exceeding any expectations. Critics praised the team's innovative approach, calling it a landmark moment in conservation, not just for the technical achievement, but for the profound ethical sensitivity displayed. The portrait was no longer just a beautiful piece of late 19th century art. It had become something far more profound. It transformed into a powerful narrative of loss, a testament to enduring love, and a vivid illustration of the hidden layers of human emotion so often embedded within historical objects. Eleanor's gentle eyes, once serene, now held the weight of an entire untold history, a silent dialogue between the visible and the concealed. The almost imperceptible symbols on the bone cross, once a whisper of an ancient protective charm, now spoke volumes about desperate hopes and poignant farewells. The portrait became a poignant reminder that art is never truly inert. It is a living vessel, carrying echoes of the past, whispering secrets across centuries. It highlighted the profound, unbreakable connection between art and the human experience, demonstrating that sometimes the most powerful stories are those that are kept hidden, waiting patiently for the right moment and the right hands to be respectfully brought to light. It challenged viewers to look beyond the surface, to question what else might lie beneath the apparent, reminding them that every brushstroke, every object within a frame, could hold a universe of unspoken meaning. The resolution of the ethical conundrum came after much deliberation, a decision forged in the crucible of conflicting academic and emotional imperatives. Evelyn, guided by an unwavering commitment to both preservation and respect, proposed a solution that sought to bridge the past and the present without violating the intimate sanctity of the original intent. The team would carefully preserve the bone cross in situ, ensuring its structural integrity was maintained for future generations, but they would create a special reversible display method that allowed for its viewing without permanent alteration to the painting's surface or aesthetic. This ingenious method involved a subtly integrated transparent panel, crafted from a specialized, non-reflective acrylic precisely fitted over the area of the bone cross. It was designed to be almost imperceptible when closed, allowing the portrait to be viewed as Abernathy originally presented it, a serene depiction of Eleanor. Yet with a gentle, deliberate motion, the panel could be opened, revealing the hidden bone cross beneath, protected but fully accessible for scholarly examination and public appreciation. It was a compromise that honored both the visible and the concealed, a testament to the layers of history and meaning embedded within the artwork. The restored portrait, now imbued with a profound new layer of meaning and an astonishing backstory, was finally ready for its unveiling. The art world buzzed with anticipation. News of the unprecedented discovery had leaked, generating significant interest far beyond the usual museum circles. When it was finally presented to the public, the impact was immediate and deeply moving. The elegant portrait of Eleanor, her youthful serenity now underscored by the poignant narrative of her short life and the hidden memento of grief, drew crowds unlike anything the museum had seen in years. Historians, art critics, and the general public alike were captivated not just by the painting's beauty, but by the powerful human story it now told. Docents, specially trained by Evelyn and her team, would guide visitors through the layers of the painting's history, explaining the painstaking restoration process, the discovery of the bone cross, and the emotional context that brought it into being. They demonstrated the reversible viewing panel, revealing the intricate carving beneath the paint, transforming a passive viewing experience into an interactive journey through time and emotion. The public's response was overwhelmingly emotional. Many found themselves deeply stirred by the tangible connection to past grief and remembrance. The portrait, once a mere aesthetic object, had transcended its material form to become a powerful narrative of loss, love, and the enduring human spirit that seeks to commemorate and remember. It highlighted the profound, often hidden connection between art and human experience, demonstrating that even the most conventional pieces can conceal extraordinary secrets. Evelyn and her team, initially hesitant about the ethical implications of revealing such a private tribute, found solace in the public's respectful and empathetic reaction. The portrait did not become a sensational spectacle. Instead, it became a focal point for reflection on mortality, memory, and the universal need for solace in the face of loss. It served as a potent reminder that every brushstroke, every object, can hold a universe of unspoken stories, waiting for patient eyes and dedicated hands to bring them to light. Ultimately, the portrait of Eleanor, now known affectionately as the portrait with the hidden cross, found a special and revered place in a dedicated museum exhibition. This new wing, curated with Evelyn's extensive input, was aptly titled Whispers of the Past, Hidden Histories in Art, showcasing other artworks that revealed secret layers, obscured meanings, or unexpected materials upon closer examination. Dr. Evelyn Reed and her entire team received widespread acclaim and numerous accolades for their meticulous work, their innovative restoration techniques, and especially for their sensitive and ethical handling of such a delicate and profoundly personal discovery. Their work set a new precedent for how art conservation could not only preserve but also respectfully interpret the deeper, often forgotten human stories that lie beneath the surface of artistic creations. Evelyn, however, found her greatest reward not in the praise, but in the quiet moments spent observing visitors contemplating Eleanor's portrait, their expressions reflecting a shared understanding of the delicate dance between life and death, beauty and sorrow. The story of Eleanor's portrait and the bone cross embedded within its canvas concluded with a powerful, lingering reflection on the very essence of art restoration. It was, Evelyn knew now more profoundly than ever, not merely about preserving paint on canvas or repairing damaged wood. It was about an archaeology of the soul, about uncovering and respectfully interpreting the often forgotten human stories that lay beneath the surface of every artifact. It was about giving voice to the voiceless, revealing the hidden lives and emotions of those who came before us. Eleanor's portrait, with its secret now laid bare and tenderly protected, stood as a powerful, silent reminder of the enduring nature of grief, the solace found in remembrance, and the myriad of subtle, often personal ways history manifests itself in the objects we create and cherish. It underscored the profound truth that sometimes the most significant stories are not those proclaimed loudly, but those whispered in the most intimate, hidden corners of human endeavor, waiting patiently for the right moment and the right people to bring them gently into the light. This extraordinary journey into the past, guided by the delicate touch of modern conservation, begged a final question for all who encountered it. What other secrets do you think lie hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered and understood? Share your thoughts, your own theories, your hopes, and your fascinations in the comments below. If you enjoyed this profound journey into historical mystery, this uncovering of a hidden truth that resonated across centuries, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe for more fascinating stories from the intersection of art, history, and human emotion, and click that bell icon to be notified the moment our next video drops, taking you on yet another unforgettable exploration into the secrets the world holds.